Hey, what's happening? So Liverpool have reportedly ended their interest in signing Jude Bellingham this summer from Borussia Dortmund. And yeah, this one hurts. This one hurts. Look, not loads, and certainly not as much as it's clearly hurt some people. I'll be perfectly honest, I've kind of reached the point in my life where transfers tend not to have that kind of impact on me, in or out. My heart was broken for the final time by Fernando Torres of players leaving. It's never been the same since. And in terms of players coming in, I've seen players that I was dead excited for us to sign and be rubbish. And I've seen players that I wasn't excited and thought, what the hell are Liverpool doing, sign? And then they become some of my favourite players of all time. But that's kind of by the by. Jude Bellingham has been Liverpool's main target now for at least 2 years, coming up on 2 years. It's the one that they've almost gone to great lengths not to shut down. There's been a common running thread when I've chatted a lot to Neil Jones of Goal and chatted to a lot of other Liverpool JNOs, run through the pantheon of them, from obviously James Pearce and Ian Doyle and everyone in between. Liverpool are very good at shutting down rumours they don't want the football club to be associated with. And the fact that there hadn't been this sort of implicit denial of the Jude Bellingham one added legs to the interest. You can see the work that was being done by Trent and Jordan. And look, life isn't that cynical. They might just like him as a fella. They might just be good mates with him. It's possible for footballers to be mates and not be ulterior motives, like how boys and girls can be friends and not necessarily have, But there's no escaping the fact that Jude Bellingham was quite clearly high on Liverpool's wish list. In fact, he's quite clearly been top of Liverpool's wish list for a very, very long time. And just to kind of bring you back through the timeline of this last couple of days, if you weren't familiar with it, Jan Aage Fjortoft, Middlesbrough centre-forward legend, now somewhat of a post-match interviewer, that we've seen a couple of times. Some of the best Liverpool post-match interviews have had Jan Aage Fjortoft involved. Charismatic fella. Anyway, he tweeted, I'm going to get the tweet up in front of me, regarding Jude Bellingham, just to confirm the report earlier today, Liverpool have sent an offer to Dortmund. The roulette is open. That was at 7:30 p.m. 2 hours later, Paul Joyce and the vast majority of the Northwest Liverpool press pack had all written their own pieces saying that, no. To read a quote from James Pearce in The Athletic, senior Anfield sources have indicated that following lengthy discussions, the deal stopped making sense and they felt they couldn't afford to put all their eggs in one basket, especially with no guarantees that Bellingham will even leave Dortmund this summer or pick Anfield as his destination of choice. So I want to pick through a couple of those bits. And then I want to talk on the wider issues, because I think that paragraph in and of itself kind of sums up that there's so much in there where Liverpool are today, where Bellingham are today, and the pressures that are facing Liverpool when we come to the summer transfer window and the rebuild ahead of Jurgen Klopp. Where to start on that? I thought the thing that was really interesting in that was the idea that there's no guarantees whether he'll even leave Dortmund or choose Anfield. Now, obviously what we know is the Reds are in a situation where it's highly unlikely they'll make top four. I haven't given up hope, and that's because I'm an optimistic idiot. But the fact that they haven't been able to nail this down. So when Virgil van Dijk is discussed in the summer of 2017, and there's the reported tapping up of all that kind of stuff, Liverpool then wait, because they know they've agreed with the player, and it's just a matter of getting Southampton to agree. Van Dijk wants to come to Liverpool. They've put off all the other suitors because Van Dijk is so convinced of the Liverpool project. It's just a matter of getting a fee agreed. And I honestly, to my core, believe that was the approach they've taken with Bellingham. Woo him off the pitch, get him to think Liverpool is my future. That's where it's going to be, and that will strengthen the hand in Dortmund negotiations. However, what's happened? Liverpool have been shit this season, really shit, by their own high standards, not by the standards of like Everton, for example, in which case they've been stellar this season, absolutely tip-top, perfect. But by the high standards that Liverpool have set and the high standards required by top talents around world football, Liverpool are in the process of falling short. And if you want to commit a career, football careers are very short, to your next big move, the one that's going to be the one that makes you really, You'll be wanting to get that right, and Liverpool not being able to guarantee Champions League football right now will obviously have had an impact on that. The financial ramifications of that will play a part as well. It's £100 million. You know, you can win just by getting to a Champions League final. It's like £90-ish million. Basically, if you can get into out of the groups and what have you. It's a huge financial windfall to be in the Champions League, and that puts Liverpool in a precarious position that right now they can't guarantee anything. They could win 9 games now, the remaining 9 games of the season, and still not finish in the top 4. If they do win those 9 and they do get on the top 4, the landscape might change, but that's kind of by the by and a bit of a waste of energy at the moment. The thing that I think is really interesting on this whole point is the idea that they can't afford to put all their eggs in one basket. Now, the immediate counterpoint is you have done. You've done that. You've been putting your eggs. What are you doing? You've been putting your eggs in this basket all the way since the summer. Because if you weren't all in on Jude Bellingham, then let's rewind the clock. Let's jump in on DeLoreans, go back in time, and buy a fucking midfielder last summer instead. Maybe 2. Instead of just getting Arthur Melo in on loan, who effectively at this point is a part myth, part just like training ground dummy that's taking up a space until we see him play more than a handful of minutes on the pitch. Now, the thing is, just because you've always done something doesn't mean you always have to do something, and course corrections can be made. I mean, go and tell the captain of the Titanic, would you like to continue on that path, or would you like to continue to change your mind and maybe alter your course a little bit on the way? If he was given a choice, I'm sure he would be delighted to be able to change course. Now, one of those is in the past and one of them is still a malleable future. Liverpool have the ability to course correct and make sure the club is in good hands in terms of on the field for the years to come, and that is a central pivotal part of this. I say that because I think Liverpool should buy Jude Bellingham. Let's make that perfectly clear. I think it sends a huge message to world football. It sends a message to the league. It re-establishes Liverpool at the top of the food chain of the transfer market. And once you stop being at that, you start to be in the position where people can pick you off. And we've been through that. We've come out of that where Raheem Sterling's getting his head in, Michael Owen getting his head in years past, Steven Gerrard would have every year. Mo Salah was getting every year, and that stopped because Liverpool got to the top of football, refused to be bullied in the transfer market, and signed good players to keep them at the top, and had a boss manager. That's the kind of thing. And if you're not in Champions League, you're not financially competing, and you're generally not playing very well. And then if you start to not get the top players that are available, you stop convincing top talents to come to your club, then you're starting to slip down that pecking order, and then you're in the mire with all those other teams. Anyway, look, I'm getting distracted. The point that I really want to talk about is, do you think at home, on the bus, wherever you are, watching this right now, that Jude Bellingham is the final piece in the puzzle that's going to take Liverpool back to the top and challenging for the Premier League title and the Champions League again? Or do you believe that Liverpool need to go out and buy a clutch of players to be able to get back there? There's a third camp, which means it says that there's no matter what Liverpool do, they're in the toilet, but that's kind of, I can't answer to them. My glass could never be that half empty. Because if you think that Liverpool just need one player and that one world-class superstar comes in is enough to solve the problems, I totally get being outrageously annoyed with Liverpool not throwing all in on Jude Bellingham. Because in that mentality, do it. Doesn't matter what he costs. Go and make that happen. And then if you've got other bits and pieces to do, find clever ways to do those other bits and pieces. And look, Liverpool have been that club in the past. Under Rafa Benitez, Liverpool were very much that club, where you'd put all your eggs in one or two players. And that's cool, because when they're on the pitch, they make a huge difference. They make a stratospheric difference to your football club. And Fernando Torres is prime example number one of this. You get Torres, he's your number 9, he's scoring the goals and he's leading the line, and he combines with a world-class player that you've already got in your team in Steven Gerrard and elevates the whole offering. However, when he was injured, Liverpool were shit. Liverpool had David and Go as his understudy, very briefly Robbie Keane. It was never quite the same thing, and we had that a lot. And then what happens is you haven't got enough players to then generate revenue to continue to recycle the squad over the years. So what you have to do is you end up selling key components of your team and then replacing them, and then that is just like it's a negative spiral that overall harms the overall quality of your squad. The more you have to buy squad players, the worse your overall level of squad gets. You need to buy players who are better than what you've got in your first team and push your existing first teamers down, and that's a very tricky thing to do. And so if you fall into the other camp, and I'm having just done this exercise, which I'm going to explain to you right now, called the Liverpool squad churn, I'm starting to fall into the latter camp. Now, I still believe, and I still would like Liverpool to buy a clutch of players, one of them being Jude Bellingham. I would like us to go and spend whatever it costs. It costs 130 million, just get it done, and then figure it out for other bits and pieces. The slight issue, just to the side for that, is that we don't have lots of saleable assets in the squad. And there are already a number of players walking out the door, which means you've got spaces you need to fill already without then sending bodies out as like make weight effectively. So what I've gone through is I've broken the squad down into 4 categories. Category 1, excuse some of the horrendous handwriting, you don't really need to see this, but we've got in green is sound. So all the players highlighted in green are, I think, non-issues. You keep them, you sound, you build a team around them. The ones in pink are players that have some concerns. So by and large, keep them for next season, at least, perhaps even seasons beyond. And some concerns relate to, in some instances, age, in some instances, injuries, fitness, and in some instances, level and ability. Beyond that, we've got major decisions, which is purple, and those are the players who you could some of them are players that you would look to keep in a perfect world. Other of them are players who need to have a real decision made over them. You know, are they too old? Are they not of the skill level required? Is there some real question marks over their long-term futures at Liverpool? And finally, we've simply got in blue because, you know, blue poo out. These are players leaving the side in the summer, come hell or high water, and that means there's numbers leaving your squad, and therefore, if at the bare minimum, they probably need to be replaced just in terms of volume of footballers to start the new campaign. So, to spell that out, in terms of the goalkeeper, Alisson, no issues whatsoever. Kelleher, major decision to be made. He's of an age now, he's good enough to play Premier League football. He's the second best, well, he might be the second best goalie. He's the best backup goalie in the league. He could go and start for the vast majority, I think, of Champions League level clubs, or certainly at least get into a good level group stage Champions League side if he wanted to. There's money to be made there, but that's an issue that represents. Beneath that, you've also got Adrian, who's old, and his contract is an issue as well. He'll probably leave. So if Kelleher leaves, you need to do 2 goalkeepers in the summer. That's a huge thing that needs to be done. In terms of fullbacks, Trent absolutely signed. Slight question marks over his position and stuff, but I don't think you need to toy with. You could move him into midfield, but if you move him into midfield, you've then got to buy a right back. So I wouldn't be toying with that too much, and it's a conversation for another video. I think Tsimikas is fine. He seems to be quite happy in his squad role, getting games, loving life, fine. Robertson and Ramsey, some concerns. Robertson's about to turn 30. And he's had a lot of football in his legs. At some point, he's going to melt, and you don't want that to be in the middle of a campaign. But we're okay because of the Tsimikas situation. And Ramsey, injuries. He's not been able to play for us yet, so we don't know whether he's really capable of being a true understudy for Trent. But he's had a season, plenty of time, not too much of a concern. Centre-backs, I've got Virgil van Dijk has some concerns. He's starting to get on. We're starting to see a little bit of the, maybe a little bit of a tailing off of his career and his abilities. I still think he's the best centre-back in the league. I think when he gets a summer off to rest and recuperate, I think we'll get him back to as good as we can get him back. I wouldn't be worrying about him long term. I don't think he needs to go in this summer, unless you've got a ridiculously large offer for him. But even still, his experience, his ability, he's still a pillar of this squad as far as I'm concerned. Gomez might surprise a few, and maybe they'll disagree, but I think Gomez is a similar sort of vein as well. He's the right age bracket. His concerns are over injury and maybe his total level. Is he good enough to be a regular starter for Liverpool? Maybe not, but I think he's certainly good enough to be in and around the squad. It's an issue I think, again, if you get rid of Gomez, you might get some money for him, but you're going to have to replace him. And to replace him, you need to buy someone who is good enough, who is a Van Dijk and Konate's level, and that's an issue. And it's an issue exacerbated by Joel Matip, who I think of the two is in major decisions. He's now in his 30s. He's had injury issues as well, and consistent ones, and not like freakish ones. He just gets injury problems. I'd have him as a major decision to be made. And then finally, you've got Konate there, who's in green. So I think 3 of your 4 centre-halves, I think theoretically you're fine with, and 1 you're probably looking to move on in the summer in terms of Joel Matip. Moving into the midfield, and this is where all of the colours of the rainbow come out, and we only got a couple of greens in there. The greens are Elliott and Bajcetic, young players of the standard, certainly, to at least contribute to the squads on a week-by-week basis. No problems with them. And then aside from that, I think people might have issue with Henderson, and I've seen people having issues with Thiago, but yeah, I think you're making too much work for yourself this summer. If they're happy to still be the main men, still earning the good money, but they've got the experience, they've got the right level of dedication, they're both good footballers still, have they got the ability to play 2 games a week for 10 weeks on the bounce? No, but that's where the rest of the work needs to be done. If you undo that, and you'll see as I come on to it, there's so much other work to be done, I would be leaving them in place. I think in terms of then below that, you've got major decisions. The major decision number 1, Fabinho. This is your last chance to cash in on him, because if he has another season like this, his value will be in the absolute toilet, and you will have a husk of a footballer on your hands. There is a chance that a summer off might get him back to the standard, and that is a huge decision for Liverpool to make this summer. They might need to go out and buy a first choice number 6. I think they wanted to start that process last year with Tchouaméni, and then we'd be in a much more comfortable position this year had we done that, or at least gone and got target number 2. This is where we are. No point crying over spilt milk. Fabinho is the biggest question that needs to be answered by Liverpool in the summer. And then the similar but different from different ends of the career, Curtis Jones is a huge decision. Can he play? Can he play regular football? He said himself he's training for 4 days and then have a day off at the end of it. If he gets over that, that's hurdle number 1. Is he of the required standard to be involved in Liverpool's matchday squads on a week-to-week basis? I think yes. Loads of people think no. We're not doing it here. But there's enough there. He's played 80-something games for Liverpool so far. I think that's a very good start for a 22-year-old Liverpool career, and very few homegrown footballers having come through the academy ever get even close to get a fraction to what Curtis has achieved so far. But he might require a loan, and that's a big decision to make. And Milner, other end of the spectrum, I'd keep him for another year. I'd integrate him to the coaching staff, but he might want more. He might want to go on and get another season somewhere else under his belt, and that's a decision to be made. All I know is he should be playing less football this season. He needs to have his minutes halved across the board, and someone else needs to step up to replace them. In terms of out, Ox, Keita and Arthur Melo, the lesser spotted, but there's 3 footballers who are on the books right now who can technically and have technically played football matches, just about in Arthur Melo's case, who are not going to be at the football club and are going to need to be replaced in terms of bodies. Now, you could make a case for Bajcetic will sort of fill a little bit of that. If Curtis Jones' health comes back, he will fill a little bit more of those, which will help that. But still, in terms of raw bodies, a minimum of 2 just to cover the shortfall, I would suggest, in terms of numbers, is a thing for Liverpool there. But yeah, lots and lots and lots of midfield work to do. Then in terms of the front line, just for completeness, I think Darwin, Diaz and Gakpo, no problems whatsoever. A new sign, it's integrating, they're only going to get better. They're going to go from strength to strength. Fingers crossed the injury issues for Diaz are over and done with, but we'll know more. But again, no need to worry about that. Bobby Firmino is going, so he's in blue. I think there's big decisions to be made over Diogo Jota. He's a saleable asset. Do we feel that he's of the standard? I thought a year ago he absolutely was. There's some question marks creeping in. Now, he hasn't scored in like a year for us, basically, but he is our second highest assister in that time. So he is having a factor, even though banter accounts would have you feel like he was having a genuinely terrible time at Liverpool. It's not quite as bad as all that. And Carvalho is even a front 3 player, is a midfield player. Is he of the standard? I don't quite know just yet. Do you keep him round, do another year, or do you send him out on loan? The point is, he's played minutes, he scored goals for Liverpool. It's another body issue for us. And then one that is a slight, some concern is Mo Salah, just because of age. And again, value and contract and all those things. Maybe you'd cash in if someone gave you the big deal for Salah. But by and large, you're building around Darwin, Diaz, Gakpo and Salah, certainly. And then there's a question mark over Jota and Carvalho there. And obviously with Firmino going out the door, do you need to replace him? Or is Gakpo his pre-bought replacement, much like we did with Diaz for Mane? So by my token, you're looking at a minimum of 4, probably 5 players leaving the squad. You've got major issues over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of your first team squad in addition to that. And in reality, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 absolute nailed on 0 issue footballers to definitely build around, with a clutch, maybe more 3 or 4 of those who can fall into that category. So with that in mind, I am appreciative. All I will say is I'm appreciative of the situation facing Liverpool this summer. And the problem Jurgen Klopp has got is that he's not soft, and he knows that Liverpool cannot have another season like this. If Liverpool don't get to the Champions League, we will be forgiving of this because of the credit that they have in the bank. However, Liverpool's entire enterprise is built around the financial sustainability, being able to compete because of being able to refresh and renew. That will require an influx of capital this summer in order to get themselves back on side, because as mentioned, there aren't enough saleable assets in that to rebuild the squad and refresh it from within, as they've done, over the last 5, 6, 7 years or what have you. And it comes down to this: the amount of players, I think, leaving the squad and the amount of work that needs to be done. You're potentially looking at just, it might not be quite as exacting as this. I think you probably need a goalkeeper, you need a centre-half, I think you need a bare minimum of 2 midfielders, probably 3, and you might need another forward. That's 6 footballers. And that I'd be surprised if we did 6, because there's youth players who can be promoted and maybe help out in a couple of those instances. I think at the bare minimum, you're looking at probably 4 footballers to come in the summer, and they all need to be of an acceptable standard. And the question boils down: if you get Bellingham, does that hamper your ability to get the quality in elsewhere? And therefore, you're in a situation. This is why I said at the top of this video, I don't really get too lost in transfers so much anymore, because I've seen it happen too often. You put all your eggs in the Jude Bellingham basket, and Jude Bellingham snaps his cruciate ligament at the start of the season, and Liverpool are dead. That is Liverpool dead. That's Jurgen Klopp dead. That is everything we've built over all the years is completely gone, because you've probably had to pick up some subpar players to fill the gaps in the meantime. And I'm seeing a lot of you get 3 average players. I don't think it's quite as bad as that. I think there's a potential there to go and bag 3 really, really good footballers and maybe extract some value into. Mason Mount's a good example of this. I'm not totally convinced of him. I think he's a Jurgen Klopp player. I think there's more to come from him, and he's in the right age bracket, and he's achieved a lot already, so he's got good experience. He's a scrapper, he's a fighter, he scores goals. Given Chelsea's situation, you'll probably get him for far less than his market value would be if he had a contract that he agreed or signed. They're the kind of examples that what Liverpool bring in has still got to be better than what we've got, and I think it needs to be volume rather than just that one big hit. Not what I want. Liverpool are here because of mismanagement. They're here because they didn't start this rebuild process better and more intelligently last summer. They've tried to repeat the trick of pick your top targets and don't stop until you get them. And that has yielded fantastic results in the past. Waiting and getting the best possible goal in Alisson Becker was the right move. Waiting and getting the best possible centre-half in Virgil van Dijk was the right move. Waiting for Konate, given how much it needed, because we got into the Champions League in the COVID season, that was vindicated. Waiting on a good left-back, play Milner left-back for a season. Okay, we got into the Champions League. But this feels like the well has run dry, and this is where we're at now, and Liverpool cannot afford another summer. Klopp's Liverpool career, and the happiness of all the Liverpool fans is what is at stake. And there's no way that Jurgen Klopp hasn't had a say in this. In fact, I spoke to Neil Jones on JNO Insight this week about this. I'm going to play a clip of that in a second. If you want that full show, then head over to redmenplus.com. If you use the code JNO, JOURNO, you'll get the subscription for 99p, and you get it 99p for the next 3 months as well. So it's going to take us into the summer transfer window. Neil's going to give us loads of insight, and there's loads of extra shows on there as well. But if you want this full Neil Jones, Jude Bellingham special with myself, use the code JNO to get it for 99p. I'll play that in a second, but Jurgen Klopp will be central to this decision. Make no mistake about it, because he is the guy who's going to have to firefight. He's the guy who's got to get Liverpool back up and running again, got to make us competitive again, and he needs the right tools to do that. And there's no way, in my opinion, and again in the opinion that mentioned there, that he's being hamstrung in that way. The rules are the rules. We'd all love FSG to have more money, or maybe we'd love owners with more money. Maybe it's the same thing. The reality is what the reality is. Liverpool can get back on top, but the decisions need to be made, and they need to get the right players and the right character, the right model, and the right levels of fitness as well, because you can course correct and you can change mistakes into wins. You can change defeat into wins. You can learn from past mistakes and get better, and Liverpool have consistently done that over the years. It is a huge summer. It would be devastating to see Jude Bellingham play for another football club, not Liverpool, because he quite clearly wants to do it, and I still hold a fractional hope. Who knows? Stranger things have happened, but the most important thing is not necessarily perception. It is about getting the right pieces, the right parts to get that team on the pitch, back playing the Jurgen Klopp way again. And this will hopefully just be a footnote story that we'll look back and laugh on this time next year, when Liverpool are right back in the mix, challenging for major honours again, because we got the right players this summer coming. We won't even be asked about all this. It feels so fresh and so raw now. If they don't get it right, then yeah, look, can of worms is open. It's going to be a total free-for-all, and the people who's made the decisions, they will have to shoulder the blame, whatever that may look like. But anyway, look, that was an interesting chat. I certainly enjoyed that. I enjoyed getting the highlighted pens out again. If you agree or disagree with any of the points, let them know in the comments. And yeah, I'm going to play it out with that clip from JNO Insight from Neil Jones, our Jude Bellingham transfer pull-out special. It's a 60-minute show. Make sure you get it on redmenplus.com and use the code JNO when you sign up for a monthly subscription on there to get it for 99p. Anyway, here is that. From James's articles, he says senior Anfield sources have indicated that following lengthy discussion, the deal stopped making sense.
Yeah.
Is Jurgen Klopp in those conversations?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest question. I mean, it is a question that I'm sure he'll be asked on Friday. I'm sure we can guess the get ready. It's an early press conference as well, so you'll have all day to fume. But he'll be asked, I'm sure, about the situation. But the question that I would ask if I get the chance, I'm always last on, so usually he's been asked it before I get round to me. But would be, who's making this decision? Because your sporting director's on his way out. The guy who was the sort of glue that linked the owners and the football side, we're told has moved back from that role. So
this is Mike Gordon,
who's moved away. There's nobody. The other people, senior figures on the recruitment team, yeah, Dave Fallows, Barry Hunter, others, yeah, have they got a say in it, or are they just are they sort of the doers in the story? It has to be the manager, doesn't it? It has to be him, sort of certainly driving a lot of what Liverpool need, what to do, and that is interesting, isn't it? Because I don't think there are many managers in the Premier League at the moment who've got as much responsibility as him for sort of not just especially given the form, fixing the problems on the pitch, but also juggling these things off the pitch, where it's a case of, well, do you want that, or do you want this, or what do you want? Those kind of things. I think in the past it's been a bit more sort of obvious, where it's like, well, okay, Jurgen will sort of make his representation and he wants this, and the club will tell him whether he can do it or not, and then he'll move on. I think now it's almost like they're deciding with Jurgen what they're going to do, as opposed to sort of, feeding back to him. But that's the obvious conclusion to reach.
Is the thing with Jurgen involved in this, though, is he's a smart man. He knows he's got lots of credit in the bank,
but credit runs out pretty quickly. He'll be acutely aware of how much this summer needs to be right, because he and is almost, I guess, he will be aware of the added scrutiny that this is putting on him. And you would guess he's the one ultimately making the decision. And the decision will be, would you, and it's a simplification to say, you can have Bellingham and you'll have £50 million left over to do the rest. Or you can have these 3 players for that price and have £50 million left over. And he's effectively choosing the latter option. But he will know that he has to get the recruitment right this summer because he can't afford another season like this one.
And also, I suppose the other point to make on that is, you have to know you can get those players as well. You know, if it's a case of let's just use 3 names I can see on here: Barella, Mount, Caicedo. Let's say that was the argument. Oh, we get those 3. What happens if you go to get Caicedo and Brighton? So we're not selling him.
Yeah,
we want 100 million, and you say, well, we're not paying that. It's like, well, okay, well, cross him off your list. Mason Mount says, you know what? Frank Lampard's got the Chelsea job. I'll sign a new contract to Chelsea. I'm going to stay. You go, oh, right, okay, that's a blow. And all of a sudden, you're halfway down your reserve list, and you've lost time, you've lost whatever. You know, you're all of a sudden you're in a position where it's like, oh God, like what do we do? So, could you reach the conclusion that Liverpool have got something in mind where they've made some progress on some of these fronts? I think it's fair. I think that's a fair hope to have, given some of the comments from Jurgen. I think he said positive in terms of players, didn't he? He said we will definitely spend. There have been talks, no decisions, but positive talks. Okay, so if Liverpool made some progress with some of these players, that is the hope, and I think it needs to be sort of finished off as well, because I don't think Liverpool can't go into the summer with this idea where you start seeing this sort of bidding war coming on, and first bid rejected, and are Liverpool going to go back with an improved bid, or are Liverpool just monitoring that situation? But Manchester United might steal them. Liverpool need to be in a position where they go bang, bang, bang. They're our players. Thank you. Right, let's sort of draw a line under it.